All right, so I'm doing a little two-part fitness series for entrepreneurs, and today I've got a CEO that has taken fitness to a new level. Welcome back, Todd Hauptli.
Hey, thanks for having me back. It's great to be with you.
Yeah, man, I'm really, really glad you're here. Todd, I interviewed Todd back April 30. I looked up the date before this was April 30 of 2024. And Todd is a president and CEO of the American Association of Airport Executives. That's AAAE. And he's sincerely one of the most impressive leaders I've met in any organization, profit, nonprofit. And that's why, Todd, I've met you through our industry. My software company is works with the associations. And so that's how we originally met. But I was so enamored by our conversations and the way you spoke about leadership that I wanted to have you on this podcast as well, because I think entrepreneurs and C-level executives alike could learn a lot from our conversation. So over the years, though, we continued the conversation, and you're pretty darn impressive when it comes to fitness as well. And so in a recent conversation, I think you said to me, I hit 12,400 rides on the Peloton bike last week. Not last week in particular, but collectively, last week you hit 12,400 rides. Back in January, you finished your fourth time around the planet. And then over the past 6 or 7 months, you've been focused on strength training and also running again. You're by the way, if I don't know how this works, I think it's like social media. If somebody wants to follow you on the Peloton, it's the Hopperator. That's
You
your
got it, operator.
now, Todd, before we get into the fitness side of things, because really that's the focus of today's podcast is fitness from the perspective of a CEO's mindset. Um, as a reminder, and for those people that did not listen to that podcast, you took AAAE from 30 million to 130 million in 5 years with fewer employees than you had when you were originally at 30 million. Now, it's a phenomenal episode, lots of amazing insight, a lot of history on Todd and his journey. A lot of great nuggets to pull out of that one. If you want to listen to that to get a little background on Todd, that's the April 30, 2024 episode. We're not going to get into that so much today. I want to talk a little bit more about the importance of high performing people. Let's put it in that category. Stay on top of your health. Todd, this was your idea.
Yes.
What inspired that thought?
Oh, I have been on a journey, if you will, over the past 6 years with my own fitness. And in the course of that, I suspect, much like a religious convert, I zealously watch and see folks who aren't taking care of themselves in the way they should, that are in key leadership positions. And it's natural, I think, for people to put themselves at the bottom of the priority list rather than at the top when they're busy running a company, running a business, starting up a business, or a senior executive. They're pulled in a lot of different directions. There's so many things going on that you can, if you're not intentional and careful about it, you can put yourself at the bottom of the list. And over the course of a few years, it doesn't take long. You can add a bunch of pounds on, slow down, get yourself into some health jams. And to me, I have seen that occur in others, and I've sort of been able to rewire my own brain and body. And it's something I am become passionate about.
I mean, so it sounds like you have a, a, a personal. Can I ask your age? How old are you,
Sure.
Todd?
I'll be 64 next month.
You're 64. And
Chronologically 64. Metabolically, I'm 50.
Is
According
that right?
according to my latest testing, I do uh, what are called DEXA scans and PNOE tests quarterly that measure all kinds of things, body mass and fat and lean
Yeah.
muscle and VO2 max and a bunch of biomarkers. And my uh, metabolic age has dropped significantly. When I was 58 and out of shape, my metabolic age was 63. That's backwards. You don't want
Hmm.
that.
Hmm.
Uh, now that I am 63, nearly 64, I've gone and turned that around and driven that number down to where now my metabolic age is, it went down to 58, then 55, and then 52, and now I'm down at 50 and I'm pushing to get it in the 40s.
I'm glad you brought this up because and I'm familiar with the DEXA scan. What was the other one you said?
PNOE, PNOE,
And
PNOE.
what is that one?
A PNOE test is a metabolic test with all these different biomarkers. Like I said, measures VO2 max and your metabolic rate and how quickly you burn fat. There's a whole bunch of
How is that
markers
different
in
from the DEXA scan?
the DEXA scan. You lay on you've done it. You lay on a table and a thing goes across, and it will show you bone density and muscle mass and
Oh,
fat
so,
and stuff. But the PNOE
yeah.
test is a breathing test that measures lung capacity, your ability to exchange, your oxygen, and how efficiently you're able to do that.
So one is, and I have not done the DEXA or the other one, but
Okay.
I've done Prenuvo and Function Health. And so I want to spend a second talking about these things. Um, is the first one you mentioned, is that like an MRI?
DEXA, yeah, it's a little bit
Not,
like an MRI.
yeah.
You lay on effectively sort of a bed,
Hmm.
and then take 7 minutes, and you have a machine that scans slowly over your entire body, and it will then generate a report that will show you, you know, and tell you how much, uh, what your bone density is like, which is important as you get older, because people's bone density tends to diminish. And
Yeah.
that's why strength training is so important to make sure that your bone density remains strong. It will tell you how many pounds of fat you have in your body, what your lean muscle mass is. You have a body fat percentage that you want to try and drive down. In my case, when I started my journey, my body fat was at 28%, which is a very high number. It's now down at 17%, and I'm aiming to
Wow.
try and get it down to 14 or 15%. So those are just the kinds of things that you can tell from doing these. It's a non-invasive scan. And I do them, like I said, I do them once a quarter. I believe in the old Peter Drucker line, you can't manage what you don't measure. And to me, having the numbers uh, is an accountability issue for me. It keeps me held accountable because I'm trying to drive down the body fat percentage. I'm trying to drive down the metabolic age. I'm trying to increase the bone density, increase the muscle mass.
Are you familiar with Brian Johnson?
Yeah, sure. The
Yeah,
body hack guy,
the
the
body
guy
hack
that's
guy. I mean,
trying to live to be 100.
yeah,
And
he was on this podcast as well. I don't
ah,
recall the date. I want to say it was about a year and a, probably not right around the time I had you on back in 2024. Um, really interesting guy and interesting, a very controversial approach to body hacking. One of the things I've heard about Brian, or I guess a as science might challenge his approach, is he's doing so many things, it's hard to measure what is actually impacting any change.
yeah,
And I think for a scientist, that's an issue. For someone like you and me, though, I think our goal is just the change. It doesn't matter necessarily how we're getting the change.
Yeah. And I'm sort of draw the line at frog's blood or frog venom or whatever it was that he's ingesting. To me, diet and exercise solve 99% of the problems.
You haven't tried frog venom yet?
No, I think that's pretty far down my list.
So I did this Pernuvo thing, which is I think it's like 2 grand, and you sign up for this program where it's over the course of a few years. Now it's not a quarterly scan. I think they scan. I got scanned. I think I want to say 2 years ago, and I'm due for another scan now. So it's a scan, and then 2 years later another one. Incredible report, head to toe, telling you the status of your brain, your cells, your spine, the muscular issues. They're scanning for cancer and tumors and so on. Absolutely incredible. What I've done on top of that is I signed up for the Function Health scan, which do you do the Function Health or any blood testing?
Oh, I do. Yeah, I do blood testing.
Okay. So the Function Health one that I've done is got it has like 100+ blood tests, and you can sign up for more. I
Right.
mean, you could spend a ton of money on this stuff if you want. I think the basic, give or take, is like $350 or maybe a little bit more. I think you can get on promotion for $350. And it's a subscription. So every year or every 6 months, I think that's what it is. Every 6 months you do these scans. Now, what I did is I took that, I put it into AI, and I said, based on what you're seeing in my blood, what supplements do you recommend I take, and what dosage, and when should I take them? And I have never been a supplement or a vitamin guy in the past. I want to see evidence that I need something in particular before I'm going to put it into my body, for better or for worse. And that's what I loved about the Function Health thing, is it actually gave me a menu that was very specific to my needs.
Right.
Fantastic personalization going from like this Function Health into AI. It was awesome. Do you take supplements?
Every day. I have the big batch in the morning and I have a smaller batch in the evening.
How do you, so along those lines, how did you determine what supplements are you should be taking?
Same notion that you did.
Yeah, yeah.
Blood test with a lot of markers and suggestions on what to do. And I've been taking them for several years now. I've tweaked the formula just a little bit from time to time. I had a blood test come back fairly recently where I was a little low on iron, so I added an iron supplement. Um, you know, those kinds of things where you just uh, make a few changes every now and then. But I used to get sick all the time. Like you, I travel a ton. I might even travel more than
I
you.
I suspect you do.
I'm 100 and something days, between 100 and 150 days a year on the road. And I was forever coming home with a cold or something from airplanes and travel and time zone changes and sleep changes, all that. I haven't been sick in years. So the combination of exercise, diet, supplements, I think have all been a big contributing factor to getting healthier, as well as getting stronger.
I think we share the same perspective from a health and fitness perspective. I'm very, very conscious of my exercise, and my my weakness is sugar, but I try to be very conscious of that. I don't drink a lot, although I do drink alcohol. Um, and I too do not get sick very often. And now I did take the flu vaccine. Do you take the flu vaccine every year?
Flu vaccine, COVID vaccine, take them all.
You do. Yeah, I do too, because I want to I want to fight it as best I can. Um, but I've had friends that are sick constantly. And these are a lot of entrepreneur friends that have, I think oftentimes, to your point, they find themselves extremely busy traveling, going to meetings, waking up early. I have friends that are up in front of their computers at 6 a.m. for better or for worse. That's just their nature, or they're getting a haircut at 6 in the morning so that they can, however they find somebody to cut their hair at 6 in the morning, they do. And then they were out at events until the night times. And then they come home and they hang out with their kids and their grandkids and the people that are meaningful to them. and oftentimes the thing I hear is, well, I haven't had time to work out. You spent how much time a day on average, give or take, a typical day? This morning, how much time were you on the Peloton? This is a pop quiz on the Peloton
Good.
this morning.
I'll give you today's workout. Today's workout was 2 hours on the Peloton bike. And then my trainer met me at 5:15 after I had done my 2 hours on the Peloton bike.
I want to be very clear. You just said you spent 2 hours on the Peloton, and then your trainer met you at 5:15, which means that you started no later than, if I'm no mathematician, but that means you started no later than 3:15. You probably had to get there early.
Well, just down to the basement. So
Oh, so your trainer comes to your house?
my trainer will come. I found a trainer who will come to my house. So
That's great.
I was on the bike just after 3. Pedaled for a couple hours, came up, had a half a bowl of overnight oats and a half a banana, and then opened the garage door, brought the trainer in, went down to the basement, and he worked me out pretty hard today for an hour. And then he left. I fed the dog, and then I went back down and did 20 minutes on the treadmill, and then came upstairs, had breakfast, showered, and came to work. So I have a little thing that I do. I call it the 3 a.m. club, and I will post photos or videos from down in my gym at home, which is pretty tricked out. Uh, in that 3 o'clock hour, understand that most people would be horrified at the notion of exercising that early, but I need to do it that early in order to get it in and get to the office in time.
So this whole
So,
concept of I don't have time does not add up for you.
so my theory is that it's not theory. The thing I say all the time is I understand that everybody has different circumstances, but everybody has the same 24 hours in a day. And it depends on how you choose to allocate that time. I've chosen to go to sleep earlier than a lot of people would probably like to go to sleep.
When do you go to bed?
I'm usually in bed between 8:30 and 9 o'clock at
Right.
night.
Yeah,
And
it's not outrageously early. It is, to your point, it's earlier than most, but it's not like you're going to bed at 7 p.m. to get up at 3 a.m.
so, I'm usually racked out and asleep by 9:15, and then I'm usually up at 3, maybe a little bit before sometimes, every once in a while, a little bit after, but not often. And about 80 or 90% of the time in that 3 to 4 a.m. windows when I start downstairs. And it gives me a nice big block of time before the world starts happening. And I get that in. I believe that you really need to be intentional about it. I think if you are trying to build something in your career, why wouldn't you start with the most important foundational piece of it, which is yourself? And that's just a mindset thing, in my view. If you want to serve others, make sure you're in a position to serve yourself first, because that will make you more successful in serving others. You'll be stronger. You have a better sense of clarity. I think people who exercise in the morning, listen, I'm not comparing myself to these people, but if you look at a lot of successful CEOs of major companies, Iger at Disney, Zuckerberg, Tim Cook, all of these people, they get up and are exercising on or before 5 o'clock every morning.
I subscribe to that. I like to get things done in the morning. I did not do a triple this morning like you. It's something I'm doing once a year now is 75 hard, and I've done it now 3 times. Are you familiar with 75 hard? Oh, it's a really cool program. I mean, it's a little dramatic. The guy, I can't remember, I don't know the guy's name, but the guy that promotes 75 hard. I don't think he's making money off of the actual program itself. It's a free app you can download to track your progress. But every single day for 75 days, there's a series of things to check off. You have to be on some form of a diet. You have to no alcohol. There's a gallon of water a day, which for most people is like 4 of those 32-ounce things. Read 10 pages a day. Now, his thing is read a self-help or business book. I did not subscribe to that. I read a novel, but I like to, it forces me to sit down and have that mind time, quiet reading time. And then I'm probably forgetting something, but the hardest part for me was the double workouts. I have no problem doing a daily workout, but it's a double workout. 1 outdoors, 1 indoors, 45 minutes each.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and so I use that as a reset each year. Now, aside from that, I tend to work out every single day in one form or another. Um, I want to go back to something we were talking about, and then we'll come back to this holistic approach to performance, I think is where you were going with the conversation. But I don't want to leave this. I don't want to forget this. You get 6 hours of sleep a night, typically, give or take.
Yep.
At what point does sleep negatively impact your performance? Is it 5 hours? Is it 4 hours? Like how long? That's not enough sleep for me over a long period of time, 6 hours.
And all the literature you read will tell you 7, 8 hours or more.
Yeah.
I have just never been that person. I've never been somebody who slept late. I had a job in high school in the summertime that started at 4:30 in the morning, which meant that I was up at 3 something every morning. I just got used to that. And I was an early up in the morning in college when everybody else was sleeping off the night before. I was getting all my stuff out of the way, studying early. It's just something that has traveled with me. I can go to answer your question. After about the 3rd day in a row of 4 hours or less, I run into trouble. But I haven't done that recently. I've been very intentional about getting the sleep. That is a necessary piece of recovery when you're doing a lot of this strength training, in addition to the cardio. And so I've been pretty religious about making sure that I get at least 5.5, 6.5, if I can, hours of sleep, which is great for me. Different people need different amounts, but that's what works for me.
I had a sleep expert on this podcast a couple times, and one thing that stands out to me that he said, which I think is fascinating, and is super broad generalizations here, but the first half of the night, your body is focusing on your body. It's a body recovery. The second half of your sleep is focused on mental recovery. And so I think that's why oftentimes you find if you don't get a good night's sleep, you wake up, you're cranky through the day. It's hard to deal with and process adversity over the course of the day, but you're up and about, like your body's not failing you. So first and foremost is your body, second is your brain. And I can see that for sure. For me, it's when I get less than 7 hours of sleep. Or, if I need 7. If I get less than 6 hours of sleep for multiple days, I definitely get a little nasty and incapable of handling adversity, incapable of handling problems without getting very, very frustrated and deep inside. So, yeah, that's interesting. But here's the thing. I think what you're promoting and what I'm promoting is that there's a stronger emphasis on fitness. I would argue every single day. I don't think is difficult. And a better diet. I think there's ways for us to take care of our mental well-being. And I want to get into different kinds of fitness, physical fitness in a minute. You don't have to get up at 3 a.m. to do this
Absolutely
successfully.
not.
I mean, I go to bed at 10, give or take. I go to bed at 10 and I get up 5. 7 hours of sleep.
Beautiful.
That's typically my routine. Sometimes I sleep a little later. Sometimes I go to bed a little earlier, and give or take. One I'm very curious how this works. You're married, right, Todd?
Bam.
Um, as am I. My wife and I are on different schedules. She's a little bit of a night owl. You know, when I say night owl at our age, it's like she likes to stay up till 11:30. That's too late for me. So I find that sometimes I need to adjust my schedule just so I can align with her and I can where I'm prioritizing. Now, this is where priorities come into play. I'm prioritizing a little time specifically with my wife. And um but I don't think we're talking about the exceptions. We're talking about the general rule of thumb. Tell me about, if you don't mind, this is a little bit personal, but tell me about your how you and your wife interact with each other when you're going to bed at 9. Does she follow your schedule as well?
So luckily for me, I have A, an amazing wife, B, a wife who is very much into fitness as well, but in a different modality. She, for the past 14 years, has been going virtually every day to Bikram yoga, hot yoga, an
Yeah.
hour and a half of 105 or 110-degree studio doing yoga. And so she understands the mindset. She's got a very strong, toughened mindset. Uh, and so she gets it. She understands. She's a great partner on this journey for me, both in terms of understanding the fitness piece of it and the nutrition and diet piece of it, which, because no amount of exercise is going to fix a bad diet. And you really need to have both pieces working for you. And so she's been really great at that. Uh, Over the years, things have shifted now where I used to stay up later than her. Now she stays up later than me. Our big time together is when I get home in the evening and we have dinner together and we'll, talk and watch a show or something. And I'll fall asleep on the couch and she'll say, "Hey, it's time to go upstairs." And I do as I'm told. I'm
Yep.
not very bright, but I'm trainable. Um,
Well, like my kids now make fun of me because it's rare that I make it through a movie that's going past 9 p.m. And I'm okay with that, to be honest. Like I'm hanging out with my I'm hanging out with my family. I disengage probably around 9 o'clock when I fall asleep on the couch or in the chair on the floor. But so you and I talked quite a bit about fitness, which I would argue falls in the strength and endurance category. I think there's another category. So you have strength, of course, which is lifting heavy things. You have endurance or cardio, which is more like going for long periods of time. So it sounds like today you did both. You met with your trainer, which is strength, and you did the cardio, which is the 2 hours on the Peloton. I think there's another category, which is core, which I did this morning, which was, ab work, back work. Um,
your
Sometimes you
obliques, your core, absolutely.
Okay, and then there's mobility, which is something that your wife seems to focus on. That's the yoga, that's the stretching, maybe some sort of recovery activity. And then there's that final piece of the puzzle. And this I was just thinking about this before the interview. I was writing down my notes. Like this is how I would break down, and I love this thought because now I can, when I think about it like this, I can create a plan for myself where it doesn't feel like I'm necessarily working out every day, but every day I'm doing some element of these things. The final thing, though, is nutrition. And you alluded to this a minute ago. There's no amount of exercise that'll make up for a bad diet.
Right.
You want to lose weight? It's not about another hour on the Peloton. It's not about fitness. That's going to help a little. But my understanding, what I've learned, and it's becoming evident and very popular in understanding now, that nutrition is like 80% of the equation.
Exactly. It's caloric deficit. You know, how many calories are you burning at rest? How many calories are you burning? So you want to get your metabolism juiced so that you burn a lot of calories at rest. How many calories are you burning with exercise during the day? How many, and then making sure that you're dialed in on your macros and your overall caloric intake. How many grams of protein? If you're trying to do strength training, you want to make sure that you've got a bunch of protein in you. People typically aim for about a gram of protein per pound. And then you want to also be very careful about how many grams of fat you're ingesting and what your carbohydrates look like. But the big thing is, just in my view at least, is making sure that you are in a deficit, that doesn't mean a starvation diet. It just means, maybe it's a couple hundred calories difference every day between what you're putting in and what you're burning. And if you get in a caloric deficit over time, you're going to lose weight. If you take in more calories than you burn, you're going to gain weight. It's not rocket science.
So I mentioned this is a two-part series. The second part, I'm inviting my trainer into the conversation, where he's going to talk about his opinion of the caloric measurement and what that means. And he's not a fan. I don't really understand it, so I'm going to get into it with him. But he does not like the measurement of calories. He also doesn't think people need carbohydrates. So he's a little extreme in my book. He thinks the meat is the primary sustenance for humans, should be the primary sustenance. Now, this is all clearly his opinion. I'm sure people listening to this, some will disagree, and that's okay. I just want to bring some perspectives into the show, and I understand the whole concept of calories is logical to me. You consume fewer than you're burning, you're going to lose weight. Like, it just seems like easy math to me. I subscribe to some basic rules, and I'm not very good at following them all the time, but I subscribe to these basic rules. One is eat less. That one's really hard for me, especially when you get like last night I had a cheeseburger pizza. Todd, you ever have cheeseburger pizza?
That sounds brutal.
Oh my God. It's actually called the Big Mac pizza.
I can't believe you're mentioning that in a podcast on fitness. That seems
I think we're all human,
illegal.
Who could say no to that? Like, it's phenomenal. And it's so hard to say, oh, 2 slices is good. I don't need a third. I did have a little salad with that, by the way, of course, drenched in Caesar dressing. So my point is, I'm far from perfect when it comes to this stuff. I think I could eat less food. I think we could all eat far less food. If you're going to start somewhere, my very unscientific belief is just start by eating less. Second place I try to focus is keeping away from sugar. Eliminating less sugar is better. Less alcohol is better. Less fun, I know, but less alcohol is better. I know weed and cannabis, marijuana, whatever you want to call it, is becoming quite popular as an alternative substance for letting off steam. I think I've done some podcasts on that alone, and I think Huberman has done some podcasts on alcohol and cannabis. It's far from the miracle drug, but I would argue it's probably better than alcohol in many cases.
I've limited my alcohol consumption very significantly. It used to just be habitual. I would open a bottle of wine, come home, find out what we were having for dinner, go to the cellar, pull out a bottle of wine. My wife and I would split it. Now, instead of having a couple glasses a night, I'll have a couple glasses a week. Not cutting it out completely, but probably reducing it by 80%. And it makes a difference on the weight side, and it makes a difference on how quickly I spring out of bed the next morning.
Yeah. Do you, speaking of springing out of bed, do you track your sleep patterns?
I don't. I used to have an Oura ring, and I've tried different things, and it just used to frustrate me because it would always tell me, no matter how much sleep I got or no matter how great I felt, it would always tell me that I was in a sleep deficit. I didn't find it
Todd,
useful.
that's because you are. I mean, I don't know about your body and what your body is telling the Oura ring, but like 6 hours of sleep for 99% of the world is a sleep deficit. And if that's what it's going by, then I
Yeah,
get
no,
why
I
it's
get that.
good.
That's why I was like, my solution to that is just get rid of the ring.
Yeah. That's a yeah, that's a good solution. I just got a hip replacement a few years ago, and the doctor told me that I wasn't going to be able to run on that. And that that goes against my understanding of modern day hip replacement. So I went to another doctor, and that solved my problems.
Perfect.
Yeah. Um,
Go to one until you get the answer you need.
I like this conversation about breaking it down into categories. I want to continue about so the alcohol, you've limited that. Tell me about water. Are you conscious about your fluid intake, or
I am
uh,
very conscious about my
you're looking
fluid
for your
intake.
water bottle?
I've got the big one and I go through a couple of these a day.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's it's almost, I mean, you can drink too much water, but it's hard to drink too
Yeah.
much water.
Yeah. I've heard about that
And
in some marathons. Yeah.
especially with all the cycling I do, I make sure not only am I drinking a lot of water, but I'm putting electrolytes in there as well. Because if you do the endurance cycling that I do, sometimes on a weekend, Dave, it'll be instead of 2 hours, it'll be 4 or 4.5 or
Hmm.
5 hours of pedaling. And you want to make sure that you have lots of hydration as well as uh, you know, a little bit of protein and some carbohydrates in there as well. That
During the ride.
Yeah, yeah. I'll eat a banana along the way or something like that just to replenish your. You need to put more calories in when you're burning that many. Otherwise, you're gonna, as the cyclists call it, you're gonna bonk. You're gonna hit a wall, and you don't want to do that. So water, super important uh, to make sure you're staying hydrated, but also the pro tip is make sure you've got some electrolytes going in there as well.
What do you prefer from an electrolyte perspective?
I'm a
What?
Nuun, Nuun
Yeah.
tablets,
Yeah.
and watermelon's my favorite flavor. But yeah, I use those every day.
They're very convenient, the case, the little cylindrical case. I use this thing called Sustain, which I just like the taste of, and it doesn't seem to be that bad for me. But it's the way I flavor my water. I think I respect people that that like water. I actually don't like water. I think it's just boring. And maybe it's because I have a sweet tooth. I'm always looking for a little bit of flavor. So I just saw you take a drink of your water. Is that just straight up water?
That one's got electrolytes in it.
You got a Noon in there. Yep.
Yep.
Was there, I want to go back in time for a second. Was there a time you mentioned it was 6 or 7, maybe 7 or 8 years ago that you were enlightened? What was that? What was the moment where you said, I gotta fix something?
Right. So I was an athlete in high school, not a terrific athlete, but played baseball and ultimate frisbee and could make my way around a tennis court and all those kinds of things. Same thing in college, played a lot of sports. And frankly, after college, played a lot of softball and a little bit of baseball and things like that. Always pretty athletic. And I exercised. But what I didn't do was I didn't do a lot of strength training and I didn't do enough hard cardio. I would get on an elliptical and convince myself that I was, exercising hard when I really wasn't. And I just kept, yeah, over time, like I said, just if you're not intentional and careful about it, over time, you put on doesn't have to be a lot, 3 pounds, 4 pounds, 5 pounds a year. But if
Especially
you
as you
do that,
age,
yeah,
right? As
but
you age a little.
as you do that, it gets harder and harder to get off, particularly as you get older. And then for me, when I became the CEO of AAAE in 2013, it was a sprint for the first couple of years in that role. I was on the road constantly. I was visiting members and just doing lots of travel.
Eating
And,
and drinking, I'm sure,
and
socially.
dinner's too late and lots of hotel food and meals out. hit and miss gyms and things like that. And without sort of really paying attention to it, suddenly there was an extra 30, 35 pounds that were on me. I carried it pretty well, but I weighed too much. At my high water mark, I weighed 240 pounds. I'm 6'1" and I weighed 240. And I was in Hawaii for a meeting and I saw they had a Peloton bike at this place, the hotel we were staying. I thought, oh, I should try that because at 240 pounds running on the treadmill is tough. And I thought, well, let me try that. And I thought, well, there's all these people around here that I know that are at this same meeting. I'm embarrassed. What if I fall off or, don't know what I'm doing? So I didn't do it. And my wife met me later for our 25th wedding anniversary, in another part of the island that we were in, Hawaii. And there was a Peloton bike at that hotel too. And I thought, well, I don't know anybody here. I'm going to give it a shot. And I fell in love instantly. Low impact, high heart rate, sweat coming off me like nobody's business. And I was hooked. And this was January of 2020. I got online and bought a Peloton bike that day after
about 3 months before the Peloton surge.
About 3 months before the pandemic, and you could get a bike delivered within a week. And that's what happened. By the time I got back from my trip, it was a couple days later, the bike was there, and I was on and off the bike the first 2 months, a couple times a week, and was enjoying it. And then in March of 2020, when we sent everybody home, when the world shut down, I just went down into my basement and pedaled, and I just didn't stop. I just kept doing it every day for hours at a time. And like anything, at the beginning of it, you make these tremendous gains. Your body responds. I was dropping weight like crazy. And then as you keep going, it gets a little harder and a little harder to get those incremental weight loss in there. But I went from 240 pounds to 175 pounds in about 18 months. So I lost a quarter of my body weight.
What are you at now, Todd?
And I'm at 177 this
Wow.
morning.
So you maintain that. That's amazing.
The difference is it's really been 2 phases for me, and sorry to geek out about it, but phase 1 was this weight loss. Phase 2 was body composition change. And that's where the strength training came in. When I started strength training, I weighed about what I weigh now, high 170s. The difference is, since I have done this strength training, which is a little less than a year now, I weigh the same overall, but I've put on 14 pounds of muscle, and I've shed essentially 14 or 15 pounds of fat through diet and strength training.
I bet you look fine on the beach, Todd Hauptli.
Yeah, if it wasn't weird, I'd send you a picture.
I want to say that wouldn't be weird, but I don't know. We'll have to play that one by ear.
I have this bathing suit company out in California that I grew up with called Birdwell. And they make bathing suits, and I've been getting them for 40, 50 years. And I have a collection of them with a 40-inch waist, which is what I got up to at my highest watermark. And I have 38, 37, 36, 35, 34, all the way down to now. I have a 30-inch waist bathing suit that's a little tight, but it's aspirational for me.
Good grief.
I fit in the 31-inch.
That's tiny.
Which is, frankly, what my waist was in high school. And so
I don't think my waist was ever 30.
I've had this pretty dramatic body composition shift that's occurred.
You're a brand guy, I think. Would you agree with that? You like your brands?
Sure.
Clothing, yeah.
Sure.
I mean, I'm only basing it on a couple data points. Um, One in particular is Peloton. I know you're very committed to the Peloton. I reached out to you, I don't know, I want to say maybe a year ago, maybe 9 months ago, and I just checked in and you're like, "Hey, I'm going to New York. I'm gonna be I don't know, I'm gonna be in the Peloton room. If anybody has a
Studio.
Peloton, you do these training sessions and they're live sessions of people in the room. And you've done that a couple of times, right?
Lunch. I've been up there a lot.
What tell me about that experience. I always wondered what's it like? What's the whole
Fantastic.
journey like? Tell
Yeah,
me from the minute you get there to the minute you leave. What's it like?
fantastic. You check in, they ask you whether or not it's a milestone ride. Is it your 100th ride or your 1,000th ride or whatever? And they plug that into the system there so that the instructor knows. Uh, you get in, you wait to get in the studio. You get in there, you get on a bike maybe 10 minutes before the instructor gets in and everyone's warming up. There's music blaring, everyone's getting all their bikes adjusted, everybody's excited. There's a bunch of people who are in there for the first time. There's a bunch of people who are grizzled veterans who, go a lot. Uh, I go a lot for a guy who lives in Washington, D.C. I've probably taken, I don't know, 30 or 40 classes
Oh my
in the
God.
studio. And then the instructor comes in and everybody gets all excited. There's a little bit of a warm up and an explanation of the live stream feed and all of that. And then you're off to the races. And those things can be 20-minute rides and 2-hour rides and everything in between. And the instructors are terrific. There are a couple of, uh, you know, people tend to have favorites. I have favorites, but it's just a great experience. And then after the ride, everybody lines up outside and they have a spot there with where they do photos and they take photos and they send them to you so that you don't have to worry about trying to figure out how to get a selfie with the instructor or anything yourself. They've got it all mapped out for you.
Oh,
And
that's nice.
yeah, so there's cycling, there's yoga, there's treadmill running and walking, there's rowing. They've got a whole bunch of different experiences that you can do. And Peloton's one company. There's others that do this kind of stuff, but there's something pretty magical about it. I laugh. Uh, as you and I tape this, it is April Fool's Day. It's April 1st.
Yeah.
And I have a photo of me in a business suit flanked by two of the top Peloton instructors. And it was from an event that I was at. And I posted that photo today, declaring that in addition to being the CEO of AAAE, I had been appointed chairman of the board of Peloton Interactive LLC, and that these guys were there to help me with the announcement right after the opening of the New York Stock Exchange today.
I wish that
And
wasn't an April Fool's joke.
and anyway, it was just kind of fun to do for April Fools today.
You mentioned a 3 a.m. club. You said you post things. Where do you, is that public or is that a
Sure,
private group?
that's just on my Instagram account, which is Hopperator. My personal Instagram account is Hopperator. If anybody wants to see it, it's just again me in the 3 o'clock hour. I don't post them every day, even though I'm in there every day. But every once in a while, I've got the gym tricked out. LED lights. It looks like the only thing missing is a disco ball. You can do all kinds of stuff in there. Got a treadmill, a rower, the bike, a functional trainer, lots of weights, lots of mobility and stretching stuff. It's uh, it's the fully functional gym.
I can't believe I don't follow you on a Hopperator. That's going to end today. Hey, Todd, let's bring this back to leadership for a second. You have a fairly big team. Do you offer incentives? I don't mean to put you on the spot here, but do you offer incentives to your team to stay fit? Anything related to gym memberships or?
We absolutely do. A couple of things. We will help pay for gym memberships. We installed a gym in our building, and I gifted during the pandemic when we couldn't really afford as an association to be spending money on some of that stuff. I just gifted one of my Peloton bikes to the gym. So we've got a couple of Peloton bikes, and we've got rower, and we've got treadmill, we've got a tonal machine, and we've got weights and mats and all that down there. We have a wellness benefit that we offer uh, everybody on staff $80 a month to cover gym membership or personal training or yoga classes, whatever it is that they want to spend that on to help defray the costs. Because we believe it's really important to have a team that is physically fit. It helps in terms of knocking down absenteeism and people calling in sick. Uh, Strong body, strong mind. There's just a whole bunch of reasons. It helps people manage stress. These are hard jobs. We ask a lot of our team, and we try and do things to incentivize them to use the gym and take care of themselves. Another benefit that we do that I'm proud of, you didn't ask about, but I'm going to offer up.
Please, yeah.
Is we have what I put in place when I became CEO, a vacation benefit. And what that is if you'll take a minimum of 4 days off in a row, we'll pay you $1,500. And you can use that $1,500 any way you want. But what I told everybody when we started this is what would be great is if you would use that $1,500 on something that you might otherwise not do while you're on vacation. Like maybe you always wanted to stay at a really nice hotel, or maybe you always wanted to skydive, or you wanted to learn how to kite surf, or whatever. Use that money for that, and then come back and tell us about it at our monthly staff meeting. So at our monthly staff meeting, at the end of it, every month, people who have gone on vacation show photos of what they've done on their where they went, what they did, how they used their vacation bonus, and some of the stories that people have told about using that is just wonderful. And the part I love as the leader of the organization is the mind muscle connection that people make about, hey, my organization cares enough about me to make that experience possible. And it's been a great recruiting tool. As you might imagine, people, when they're trying to decide where to come work, they go, wait, you do what? You pay us to go on vacation? Sign me up. So it's been a very popular thing.
I think it's not just the $1,500 for a vacation. I think it's representative of how you see how leadership supports the staff. I think and where your values are at. I'm curious, is that once a year? And it's I'm assuming it's not a reimbursement. It's actually just like you when people go and request
we just put it in people's accounts. They just have to fill out a little form that says I was gone 4 days on vacation, and boom.
What about the $80 a month? I'm curious, why $80? It seems like where'd that come from? 80.
It started a little lower based on what monthly gym fees were typically, yeah. And then we've just bumped it up over time.
Now, is that a reimbursement, or is that also
that one's a reimbursement? And it used to be one where you had to like show receipts and stuff like that, and that was just too onerous a process. Yeah. And now people just have to fill out a quick little form that certifies that they spent the money on that, and we put it in their bank account.
I love that, Todd. I'm gonna implement some of this too. It's on a separate note, similarly, and I'm keeping an eye on the clock. I want to wrap this up with you now, but we just implemented this year for employees that have been with us for 5 years. We're doing a $5,000 vacation fund. And so it's similar, but I think I kind of like yours better because you don't have to wait 5 years to get it. It's like, and it's not a one and done. It's an annual thing. I love that. Todd, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate the suggestion and the time you've given me today.
Great to be with you as always. Appreciate it.